So, if you've watched me running around my island, you'll probably notice that I love designing. Over the years, I've made several videos with some of my design ideas that I've wanted to share with you all, so since I still get asked this a lot, I thought I'd make a compilation of some of my past videos about island inspiration, tips, and ideas. Please keep in mind some of these videos are like 3 years old now, so my island does look pretty different. However, I'm working on some totally brand new ideas, so stay tuned. For now, I hope you'll enjoy and find these ideas useful. Leave a like if you're excited, and let's do this. So for the very first thing on this list, this is something that I do all over my island. I have these everywhere on my island, and it's kind of what I do to make the edges of cliffs look a little bit more interesting, maybe to connect them with large bodies of water, or just to make a cool little water feature as you can see on screen. So basically what this is I'm creating a little circle using the water feature, and it's kind of got a little bush on the edge, as you can see. I really like this little layout. I have actually quite a few variations of this, but I feel like this is a really good way to make the edges of your cliffs look a little bit less boring and plain. Now, of course, you can just curve your cliff edges so it's just the cliff, but adding the little waterfall to it, the little kind of stream in a way, I feel like looks really good, and it just makes it more interesting. Now, I've done a few where there's not a bush on them, so the curve, it does kind of curve in, if that makes sense, like you can see on the screen. But then I've got others where I've got the bush just to make it feel a bit more natural, a bit more complete. You can even put items on there instead of the bush if you want to. I feel like that looks quite good. I've got some little patterns in some places as well. I really like this little design. It's probably one of my favorite over my island. I've seen a few people do this, but it's definitely a good way to complete your cliffs. And if you have a large body of water on your island, you can use this little bit of the cliff and the waterfall to kind of connect to that. You know, you can follow that water that's coming out of the cliff along to a bigger body of water, which is a pretty good idea. So I definitely like this one. It's always nice to have water features around your island, and quite a few on this list are going to involve different forms of water features, but this is one that I really enjoy. I also apologize in advance if I'm terrible at explaining my own ideas. Some of these ideas I did like a year ago now, so it's kind of difficult in a way to go over my thought processes, but I hope you can see what I'm explaining and that it makes somewhat sense and you're not too confused by me. So for the second item on this list, we have to talk about mini islands in the water. If you have a big body of water on your island, this is perfect for it. You can't go wrong with little tiny islands. We're on an island ourselves, so why not add even more? I really like this idea. It's pretty cute to have the little tiny ones with like maybe a bush or like a little duck on it or something. That's an idea that I put all over my island because I love ducks. I'm a really big fan of ducks. Not going to go on a tangent about ducks here, but I've got to have little nesting areas for my ducks, you know. It just makes perfect sense. But you can do bigger islands as well, like you can see on screen. I've got some pretty big ones in the middle of this giant lake that's kind of near my nook's cranny. I don't have too many water areas on my island that are huge like this, but I know some people have made really crazy builds where they've made these huge, insane lakes. Maybe they've got their own little fishing dock that they've made on them, and you can see lots of stuff off in the distance. I really love those. I've always wanted to make one. I'm actually quite tempted to make a new island, maybe, you know, see if I can get a second Switch and do it, because sadly you can't make more than one island on your, you know, on a single Switch system, which is such a shame. Come on, Nintendo, that would have been such a good idea, but I guess they want us to go out there and buy a new Switch. So yeah, I may try some of these ideas on a new island and maybe show some of them off, because I'd love to expand upon some of them more. I obviously don't want to reset my main island, and I feel like a lot of people probably feel that way. But yes, anyways, tangent over there. I really like the mini islands. There's a lot you can do, lots of different things you can put on them, little waterfalls, maybe just simple cliff structures. Maybe you just want to put like a single pillar in the water like I did with that little pot on top of the pillar. There's honestly so many ideas you can utilize here, and it just makes your lakes and, you know, rivers even feel so much more interesting. It makes them feel a lot less plain. It may make fishing a little bit more difficult in some regards, but honestly, I won't lie, I haven't fished in this game in like a year now, so it doesn't really affect me too much. On to number 3, we're going to be talking about coves now. I guess that's the word I would use for them, I'm not entirely sure, but basically these cramped little areas that are kind of surrounded by cliffs. This is almost like a small little clearing where I've got my own little rural farm, and I think it's pretty cool looking. It feels very natural, it feels very hidden. It's just a nice little resting point where maybe you're walking from one path to another and you've just got this little nice tucked away spot.
It's good scenery and you can complement it with lots of different things. I'm not necessarily saying you have to make a farm there, but I feel like this little farming patch looks really cute. It's almost like you're on a big farm and you've just stumbled upon this little tiny piece of land that the farmer has utilized the best they can. And obviously they're growing some pumpkins, which really makes me wish we had more vegetables in this game. It's actually crazy that we don't, because they were data mined ages ago, so where are the rest of the vegetables? Anyways, I definitely love little kind of tucked away areas like this. I just think they look so good, especially if your island has a lot of cliffs. A really good idea would actually be to have one of these areas kind of downwards, if that makes sense, so you'd be on the second layer of your island and you'd look down and you'd see it, and maybe it'd be inaccessible, but it would just be a nice little thing that people could view. I think that's a really good idea, and I hope that makes sense. There's just so much that you can do with cliffs in this game, and it's perfect for making little hidden kind of areas. So I recommend making as many of these as you would like to. They really do help the island feel more alive, more interesting in my opinion. It's always great when people can visit an island and discover things without, you know, it being too obvious, because some designs, for example, like city designs in Animal Crossing New Horizons, it's hard to tuck things away. I have seen lots of people do it really well, but with these more rural and natural kind of islands, it's so easy to make really hidden little coves, and I highly recommend doing it. It'll make your island so much more interesting in my opinion. We're on to number 4 already, and I'm going to be talking about winding paths. Now, this is something that I feel like a lot of people might not like the idea of, but hear me out. I personally love it when you've got these very tightly packed winding paths around your island. Now, you don't have to go as extreme as I have and just put them everywhere, because my island is basically one long winding path. I'm not gonna lie, some people do find it kind of confusing to get around, but you know what, having a few of them is not a bad idea at all. They feel nice and cozy, they feel very secretive, and it just makes exploring your island more interesting. I feel like when I see those really giant paths that are just so massive and so open, it doesn't, at least for me, feel as fun to explore. Now, I have seen some that are really well done, like huge paths surrounded by trees and flowers, and they look really cool, don't get me wrong, but I'm a big fan of the more tightly packed kind of paths, you know? This also follows into the previous idea where you can kind of lead these paths onto a little cove. I do that so much around my island. There's tons and tons of places where you'll find that happen. I'm just a really big fan of the winding paths. It feels like you're going on a little adventure around the island. And it also makes it feel more natural, because when I've kind of explored places that remind me of my island in real life, I've seen so many tight little paths where you have to kind of navigate around little cliffs and little bushes and stuff like that, and it just feels really fun, you know, it feels like you're going on a little adventure. So that's definitely something I wanted to convey with these tightly packed, you know, winding paths around my island. Count how many times I've said winding in that past little segment alone. Okay, so we're on to the 5th and final point, and I'm going to talk about island entrances, which I feel like something a lot of people want ideas and inspiration for. This is my island entrance. I honestly could not be happier with it. I really love the idea of having the bridge going over a cute little sort of stream. It just feels really nice to me, and it makes the entrance more interesting. I've seen so many different types of entrances in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Obviously, it really depends on what kind of theme you're going for, but if you're going for a more natural theme, I really like the idea of having cliffs greet the player, maybe with some nice water features and waterfalls and items on top of them. It just feels really interesting, and it feels like you're going into kind of like a cool town gate in a way. You know when in Animal Crossing Wild World and City Folk they had the massive town gate surrounding the little town that you're in? It kind of reminds me of that in a way. It's obviously less of a man-made kind of gate, but it just feels really cool, and it feels like you're being greeted by something very epic. And I feel like that's always something good to convey with your entrance terraforming. You don't want it to feel too subtle or understated, because this, for a lot of people who will visit your island, will be their first impression. And of course for you, you're going to see this entrance so much, so why not have it be something kind of grand? There's a lot of different things you can do with your terraforming when it comes to island entrances, and I just thought I'd share mine to maybe help give some inspiration. I don't see too many island entrances that have a bridge, or at least a bridge this close to the entrance, so it's definitely something I recommend doing. It just feels so interesting to me, and again, it kind of conveys that more adventurous spirit, because the player has to cross over from kind of one section of the island to another via this bridge. It just feels very cute to me. I love it all. Your dock may be feeling a little barren, but did you know that you can put items on it? With some cool fishing and pirate items, you could make your dock stand out from the rest and have some refreshing scenery whilst you fish. You can even put down patterns on the dock if you want to make it extra unique. There should be some pretty cool dock patterns you can find online, like this rainbow one I'm showing on screen. Number 3. You can turn a beekeeper's hive around to make what looks like a tiny house. If you put these somewhere you can't reach in the distance, you can make it look like you have a tiny community of homes off somewhere else on your island. This incredible creation that was shown off on Twitter really highlights what you can do in the game with a little bit of creativity, and it honestly looks fantastic. Number 4. To increase the city aesthetic, you can use these simple panels to create your own walls around the island. These are a great way to make new areas out of pretty much nothing, and there are so many great patterns you can find online to make some cool looking walls around your island. Number 5. If you're like me and want your island to feel more like an adventure to navigate than something too static, you can add some little streams that players will need to jump over to navigate around your island. These help break up the island a bit, making it feel more natural, and you can make use of the great new jump function this way, which is actually a lot of fun, I can't lie. Number 6. With the right items you could create your own surf shop somewhere in town. There are many different surfboards and wetsuits to purchase that would make the ideal outdoor area for all of your swimming and surfing needs. This is also the best spot for the beach boys to come visit your island. Number 7. I've not done this myself as I don't have the space for it, but this screenshot from Reddit shows an incredible way to launch yourself off into the seas with this incline being used as a ramp to jump out to the broad horizons. Diving has opened up some pretty fun new opportunities, and with a ramp like this, you could do some pretty sick tricks while going swimming. Number 8. Having an area to craft on your island is a great idea, as running to and from your house or resident services can take a lot of time, so pick a centralized area to set up as your crafting area. For mine, I've made quite an industrial, almost like a part of a port type thing, as it's so close to the ocean and has a bunch of different barrels around it as well. Number 9. If you get yourself some fake paintings, instead of letting them go to waste, why not set up your own little painting area? You can become the greatest artist on your island since pretty much no one else has farms other than you. Using some of the snack machines, you could make yourself a nice, chill, recreational area for your villagers and you to come and grab some snacks. I really love this part of my island and feel like you can tie an area like this into any sort of island. The items are also really great and you get those from the Nook stop. These ones are a lot less likely to steal your money as well, as you can't actually put any money in and you can't get a snack, so that's a big bonus too. On my island I have my own little dig site that I really love. I filled it with stony items, dirt, and even a Moai statue that I've hidden below the ground using terraforming. This area looks like the perfect spot for some archaeologists to discover some hidden treasures and secrets that nobody could have guessed would have popped up on your island. I love using the rope fencing for this as I feel it works well in a work-related environment like this. Number 2. Lookouts. I've created this little lookout area right in front of my museum on a higher level so that visitors can look ahead into the distance to get a better view of what is ahead of them. This little sectioned off area works really well, I feel, and helps create this cool perspective dynamic that makes this area feel more interesting overall. You could make an even bigger one and perhaps have it overlook something other than the museum, like a really cool vista. Either way, I really like this little area and it's one of my faves on my entire island. Number 3. Pumpkins. Not sure what to do with all those pumpkin items you crafted during Halloween now the spooky season is over? Well, I have a little idea for you. If you turn these guys around, their carved faces will disappear so they look like regular pumpkins. These work perfectly for the entire fall season, as pumpkins aren't just exclusive to Halloween of course. It gives a different use for another item, and when Halloween rolls back around, you can just face them back the other way so you can get the spooky effect once again. Number 4. Snack machines. A little known fact by players is that you can actually place a smaller item on top of a snack machine. This might seem pointless, but the cool thing about this is that it's actually one of the highest ways to get up an item. Therefore, you could use it to put some items way up high on these machines. It also gives the machine a little bit more personality with those extra decorative touches. Number 5. Barrels. Have you crafted a barrel yet? These items look really great on any island, but what you might not have known is that you can actually put small items on top of them. If you placed a pumpkin, it could look like you're making some kind of beverage out of the pumpkins. Or maybe you could put a frying pan to show these barrels are being used in a cooking area. Number 6. Fake art. There isn't really much you can do with fake art, so why not place it outside and make some kind of art collector's house or even an auction house? You might as well, since you won't really be able to sell this either, and if you already spent the bells on it, it's better not to let it go to waste. Number 7, Villager Estates. Got a favorite villager and a ton of space you're not sure how to fill on your island? Why not make your villager their own private estate? I've given Bob this massive outdoor space that is dedicated entirely to him. He occupies this space completely. I was never sure what to do about this area beforehand, so it just works so well as his own little outdoor area. Of course, I put some playground themed stuff as Bob likes that sort of item, so I think it just works really well. I definitely recommend this if you're struggling to find places to put things, as I'm sure a few of us out there have really big empty spaces on our islands. Number 8, mixing trees. It's easy to get into the habit of having one of the same type of tree everywhere on your island, especially if you prefer a specific one. But for that random natural element, I highly recommend mixing your trees so you have a variety of them. This makes the entire area feel much more natural and like a place that could actually feel like it's in the real world. I definitely recommend doing this to get that nice effect, and everything just feels so cozy and natural with all of your trees mixed. Number 9, sea creatures. Like with the turtle, did you guys know you can place some of the sea creatures you dive for outdoors? Some of these look absolutely terrifying in all honesty, but hey, it's kinda interesting that they aren't confined to their aquariums, so you could use them to decorate your island, especially the seaweed, which works really well for the beach. You could try and go after a whole bunch of these since they're actually not too rare in the ocean, and you can also get these really massive crabs that are just absolutely terrifying in my opinion, and would work really well for a spooky island. Number 10, mushrooms, acorns, and more. Collected a lot of those little materials and not sure what to do with them other than crafting. All of these actually make fantastic little decorations, and you can place them pretty much anywhere on your island. They'll really help give your island a much more natural feel with these scattered in different places across the island. You can even do this with those pumpkins if you're not sure what to do with them other than Halloween, and they work as really great decorations too.
Okay, but Red Shop is a scam. Let's make this clear, that is definitely a scam. Since the game's launch, we've seen new shops pop up in Harvey's Island, and we also can't forget about the buildings and shops that you can find on the Happy and Paradise Archipelago as well. But to the disappointment of some players, we haven't been able to add any new buildings to our main island. Some places have become more expandable, like the museum for example, with the art exhibit and the roost added later on, but we haven't been able to add any new major structures to the island. However, there is a really ingenious way of filling up your island with some really cool and original new shops. Although sadly these shops don't have a functional purpose, if you're looking to add some more personality to your island or even just fill some space, these could be a really fantastic addition, and they're super easy to build as well. As you can see, you can build custom shops for characters like Leif. You can even make ones for Flick and CJ, and we can't forget about Daisy May and her Stonks shop either. These shop designs were all created by Tropikitch ACNH over on Instagram, whose island I'm showing off right now, and you can see just how cool these shops actually look. Each shop is made up of several different elements, for example items like the bookcase and of course these simple panels which you can actually display these custom designs on, which really sell the design. Although I know some people aren't a big fan of creating illusion designs like this where you're using simple panels and other unrelated items that wouldn't usually work as a shop to create something new, I personally think it's really clever and a super cool way to create some new ideas on your island that simply wouldn't be possible without this creative thinking. Although it is worth noting that this island was actually created before 2.0 as far as I know, which means that you may be able to use some of the newer items to make all kinds of different illusions as well, just whatever your mind can come up with. Either way, these incredibly designed signs are what will really sell these as shops on your island, and there are options for so many different special characters as well, so you could make shops for all of your favorite ones. Even if you don't have a more city themed island, I'm sure you could still incorporate these into a natural feeling island too. In fact, there are even designs for some villagers in the game who can have their own shops. For example, here is one for Audi which looks incredibly cool, so maybe you could even make a special shop for one of your villagers. Tropikitch has even created some detailed tutorials over on their Instagram to show you exactly how to make these, but of course you can add your own touch to it as well and design it however you'd like. As long as you can get the simple panels and find some other items to help make the illusion, it's fairly simple to do, and I'm sure there's lots of different items that you could work with. Even more simple panel types were added in the 2.0 update as well, so maybe you could incorporate them in somehow too. You can even check out their Instagram to find the codes for these different storefronts, or you could head to their dream address which I'm showing off on screen and find the codes in the kiosk outside of resident services.
Although it's a shame we didn't get to see more buildings added to our islands officially in Animal Crossing New Horizons, I think it's super cool how players have been so creative and have been able to create designs that we can use ourselves to make some really cool new shops. If you're struggling to fill up space on your island, or you're just simply looking for something new to build, then this could definitely be your next project, and I think it's a really cool one.
So I hope you found all of these ideas inspiring. Let me know your own island ideas down in the comments section below, I'd love to hear. If you made it to the end, be sure to comment Bob's Gang so I know you did. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for more Animal Crossing content.